What if waking up in the middle of the night isn't a sleep problem? What if it's something your ancestors did almost every day? Imagine going to sleep, waking up at 2 a.m., and sitting awake for an hour before going back to sleep. Today, we'd call that insomnia. For much of human history, it was completely normal. In fact, many humans didn't sleep once. They slept twice. A first sleep, then a period of wakefulness, then a second sleep. And if that's true, why did humans stop sleeping this way? The idea sounds strange. After all, if humans really used to sleep twice, where's the evidence? The answer is hidden in something surprisingly simple: language. For hundreds of years, people regularly referred to something called a first sleep. And if there was a first sleep, there had to be a second one. What's interesting is that these phrases appear again and again in old diaries, letters, court records, and literature. People mentioned their first sleep as casually as we talk about breakfast. Nobody stopped to explain what it meant because everyone already knew it was normal. Historical references suggest that many people went to bed shortly after sunset. They slept for several hours, woke up naturally in the middle of the night, stayed awake for a while, then returned to bed for a second sleep. This wasn't considered unusual. It was simply part of life. But what exactly were people doing during those midnight hours? The answer is surprisingly ordinary. Some people talked, some prayed, some reflected on their day, some visited neighbors, some spent quiet time with family. Others simply sat awake and thought. And that's what makes this so fascinating. Today, if you wake up at 2 a.m., you immediately reach for a phone. Ancient humans had no notifications, no social media, no streaming services, no endless scrolling, just darkness, silence, and time to think. For many people, this wakeful period wasn't stressful. It was peaceful, a natural pause between two periods of sleep. Which raises another question: why did humans sleep this way in the first place? The answer may have something to do with the world they lived in. Before electricity, darkness controlled human schedules. When the sun disappeared, most daily activities stopped. People often went to bed much earlier than we do today, sometimes shortly after sunset. But during winter, nights could last 12, 13, or even 14 hours. That's far longer than most people actually need to sleep. Instead of sleeping continuously through the entire night, they often divided their rest into two separate phases: sleep, wakefulness, sleep again. And strangely enough, modern experiments suggest this pattern may not be completely gone. Researchers have placed volunteers in environments without artificial light: no phones, no televisions, no electric lighting, just natural daylight and darkness. After several weeks, many participants began developing a sleep pattern surprisingly similar to historical descriptions. They slept, woke up naturally in the middle of the night, remained calm and awake for a period, then returned to sleep, almost as if their brains were remembering something ancient. Of course, that doesn't prove every human slept this way. Human history is incredibly diverse. Different cultures lived differently, different climates created different routines. So if humans once slept this way, what changed? The answer is light. Artificial light gradually transformed human life. Candles became more common, then gas lamps, then electric lighting. Suddenly, darkness no longer determined when people stopped working. People stayed awake later, cities became brighter, work schedules changed, industrialization demanded stricter routines, and slowly, the long nights that encouraged two separate sleeps began to disappear. Humans started compressing their sleep into a single block, the pattern many of us follow today: one sleep, one wake up, one morning. But traces of the older pattern may still remain. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night for no obvious reason? Have you ever felt strangely calm during that moment? Maybe your brain wasn't malfunctioning. Maybe it was doing something humans have done for centuries. And that's the strange thing about sleep. We tend to assume the way we live today is the way humans have always lived. But history is full of forgotten habits, forgotten routines, forgotten ways of experiencing the world. For thousands of years, humans adapted to darkness differently. They didn't necessarily fear waking up in the middle of the night. Sometimes they expected it. Sometimes they embraced it. And sometimes they simply waited for their second sleep to begin. The next time you wake up at 2 a.m., remember this: for much of human history, you might not have considered that a problem at all. You might have considered it completely normal, because humans didn't sleep once. For a very long time, many of them slept twice.